Well, good evening, folks. It's the real Captain Kirk here. It's the 29th of July. Hard to believe here. Last weekend of July here. We're live from One Bethlehem Plaza here in downtown Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. 'Tis the season, back to school. Believe it or not, 2% of kids have already gone back to school this past week, and another 36% more will go in the next week or two. So 'tis the season, not ready for it. This week, again, that kind of triggers our Wall Street clients. Again, got a few dozen of those folks that we help with year-ahead weather, believe it or not, and how it'll influence seasonal sales. So I did a couple calls here with those folks that are here this week. So I thought we'd share with you, again, just kind of a background of what we do, not just about the short-term weather, but year-ahead weather and predicting sales. Some of our Fortune 500 year-ahead savvy clients. And again, back to school always triggers, everyone wants to know what's going to happen the next quarter or two into 2024. First thing we do with anything is this: we analyze point of sale data. We've done this 10,000 plus times. Ingesting what you and I buy at the stores, collecting all that sales data, correlating it to past weather to then project those sales week by week, store by store, year ahead, everywhere on Earth. So the outputs of our technology don't look like your TV weather person's forecast. Again, a little more statistical math-based, but again, helps clients make plans on inventory, allocation, advertising, marketing, all the business decisions that need to be made up to a year in advance. Again, that's kind of what we do. One of the things we talked about was just June and how weather volatility is inherent in all things you buy. It's hot, cold, hot, wet, dry. It's always different. It's never the same. It's never last year. It's never average. So June was a classic example here. Again, it was the coolest in 19 years after 3 very warm Junes. So there was a huge negative influence on retail sales. And again, we just picked on Father's Day, again, one of the most critical Q2 holidays, again, in the mid-June timeframe. So Father's Day, even worse nationally, was the coldest in 20 years, just an epic change from last year's record hot conditions at Father's Day. So a huge negative influence on seasonal sales. We call this our power of 1 degree, and again, how it influences everything you and I buy. So air conditioners are one of the most volatile categories, down 90% again. So every degree hotter, there's typically a 15% increase in sales, but then obviously there's a downside. So 6 degrees cooler, doesn't sound like a lot, but just monumental changes in retail sales. So flower sales down 49, bug sprays down 31, pool chemicals down 24. So just a huge negative when you look at how just small changes in weather are having a huge influence on seasonal sales. We talked about a hurricane season outlook because it does play a secondary role for home centers. They love the threat of a major hurricane hitting. You buy all the stuff you need to protect your house, and then it doesn't hit. So nobody's house was destroyed, and their stores weren't destroyed. So hurricane season's off to a pretty fast start. We've got 5 named systems. We're going to have number 6 here probably this week out in the central Atlantic. It'll be a fish storm, but fast start in the Atlantic and slow start in the Pacific. We'll talk about that and what it means with El Niño. So it's don't get lulled to sleep here. We do believe it's still a above average hurricane season. And in fact, the crews at Colorado State University, CSU, increased their forecast from 15 named storms to 18. We're in the 13 to 15 range. Still very worried about Florida and North Carolina areas. So again, but anywhere along the East Coast, the waters off the East Coast are just blistering hot. So be mindful. This season, August, September, October is the peak. The other thing that's been very active this year has been tornadoes. They're up 12% over last year, 7.5% above average. Again, most in 4 years. This is a minor secondary benefit to the home center type companies. Again, your house is damaged or yard, you're going to go back there and get those things fixed. So it's a minor boost to them, and this will probably continue for the rest of this year. One thing that's way, way down here, again, making headline news up in Canada, but not here in the U.S., is wildfires. We're actually the least in 29 years. So we're 75% below average in terms of acres burned, only about 873,000 acres. I think this time last year we had 5.6 million acres burned. So we're just way, way down from last year's pretty epic start, but not this year. So near historic lows here in the U.S. Not so in Canada. They've got about 27 million acres burned up in the far northwest territories. Drought, again, is a minor influence for some of our clients that are in the ag space, but again, central U.S., but a huge improvement over last year, 69% of the U.S. in dry to drought phases. This year, only 49%. So again, least in 4 years. Again, just a minor influence on retail seasonal sales. One thing that can actually have a big impact on seasonal sales is the Christmas shopping season, of course, from early November to December. Is flu. So last year here in the U.S., we just had this epic flu season that spiked 3 months early in late November. Again, a big, huge type A flu season you see on the right chart there. One way to predict this is to look at kind of what happens in Australia. They're ahead of us. Obviously, it's winter down under right now. So last year, going into the winter, they actually had an epic type A early spike as well, and then it plummeted, just like we did. So again, they were very much a bellwether for what happened here, the flu season, very early and very big peak of type A flu. This year, you can see chart left here, their flu season is actually cut in half. It's still above average, but cut in half. And that's part of that's because people got type A last year. They got a little bit of immunity. You're not going to have as many sick people this year. So we think this will be a bellwether for the U.S. flu season. We do believe that it'll be actually a very late start, in part because last year was epically cold in September, October, coldest in over 20 years. And that leads to early onset of flu in the south, which then spreads rapidly across the country. We do not have that this year. We have a very warm fall in the south, so the kids back to school won't be getting sick as quick, and so this will probably lead to a February peak in type A, and again, probably half of what we had last year. So again, some impact on medications and things you and I buy during the holiday shopping season. Talked about El Nino, of course. Again, the models right here are projecting a strong to extremely strong El Nino, peaking probably in October, fall timeframe. One thing we can look is this bottom chart left here says, why do the models kind of project a rapidly weakening El Nino this winter? And we look at the subsurface water temperatures there, chart left here, we can see all that below normal water bubbling to the top. So again, it'll maybe a quick hit here of a very intense El Nino, and then a rapidly weakening El Nino, which if you look at the chart map upper left there, again, those waters off the East Coast are very, very warm, much above average temperatures. So this weakening El Nino and that kind of weather means nor'easters. So if you don't like nor'easter snowstorms, this may not be your winter. This could be a pretty interesting winter as we get into the Christmas and beyond. We'll start here with the obvious things we review here every week. Last week, world summer here ending tonight. Here in the U.S., about 1.9 warmer than last year. Number one hottest in 38 years. Yahoo! Retailers, seasonal suppliers are loving it, selling all their product at a pretty steep markdown, but at least you and I are getting discounts on things we didn't have to buy back in June when it was cold, but maybe buying now, but you're getting a little cheaper than you would have if you bought it back in May or June. 24% drier than last year, driest in 24 years, 6 driest in 38 years. UK very cold, cold in 6 years, well below average there. Hot spots up in Russia, more central Russia, and also Brazil on the warm side, warmest in 17 years. Not since it left are the trends versus average. If we look at this week here, again, hard to believe getting to the first few days of August, but here in the U.S., about 1.7 cooler than last year. Look at the dramatic change here in the Great Lakes Northeast. We're going to go from mid-90s for, had a day or two of that here in the Lehigh Valley area in New York City, but much, much below normal temperatures going into this next week. So cold front's already coming through and a much cooler, drier, awesome pattern if you like cooler, drier weather. Precip down about 34%, driest in 21 years, second driest in 38 years. We look at next week, again, getting into the second week of August. A little bit warmer than last year, 0.3 warmer than last year on a national scale, 6 warmest in 38 years. Still pockets of average to cool in the Tennessee Valley, mid-Atlantic. Hot spots are going to be there, of course, in the Southwest. They're going to bake. They always bake, but they're going to bake even more here with much above average temperatures. Stormy spot probably along the southeast mid-Atlantic here. Cold front probably going to stall down there. So this is not really tropical related just yet, but we got to watch it. If you got a stalled cold front, definitely need to watch that in the southeast because that's where things could flare up close in to the U.S. And if we just aggregate these trends here, World 2 Week Outlook through the 12th of August, again, cooler eastern Canada, northeast, mid-Atlantic, very cool there still in Central Europe, pretty much warm almost everywhere else, kind of typical El Nino. We'll end here with a group of emerging leaders here, again, from the Center Consulting Group. Again, had some college-aged, a little older, graduating college kids here at the office. Of course, they love the Weather Trends 360 studio spaceship, again. So, yes, great to meet them here on Friday. And, God bless these kids and kids, they're young adults in their future endeavors. So, with that, folks, a little long here tonight, but, again, kind of give you an update on what we do and how we do it. And hope you have a great week ahead, and we will be back here again this time next week.